Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Healthy India. On the show today, we are going to talk about dementia, a syndrome that leads to the loss of cognitive functioning like thinking, remembering and reasoning to such an extent that it interferes with a person's daily life and activities. As per WHO data, around 55 million people have dementia worldwide, with over 60% living in low and middle income countries. And as the proportion of older people in the population is increasing in nearly every country, this number is expected to rise to 78 million in 2030 and to about 139 million by 2050. It is the seventh leading cause of death among all diseases and one of the major causes of disability and dependency among older people globally. So what causes dementia? What are some of its common forms? Also, how can it be diagnosed? Can it be treated? And most importantly, how can it be prevented? We'll try and find answers to all these critical aspects related to dementia from two senior distinguished panelists joining us on the broadcast. Pleased to welcome on the program Dr. Prasoon Chatterjee, Additional Professor, Geriatric Department, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and Dr. Ashwin Panda. He's an Assistant Professor and Neurologist at Institute of Human Behavior and Allied Sciences. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on the broadcast today. Dr. Chatterjee, the first question that I want to ask you is, and this is related to the figures that I came across while doing my research. As per a study published by Lancet Public Health in January this year, the global dementia cases are expected to triple by 2050. In India, the cases will go up by 197%. What I want to understand from you is, what's behind this spike in cases of dementia in India and abroad?
See, as you rightly mentioned, this is a syndrome where people starts forgetting, they have problem in their personality, they have problem in reasoning. So the commonest and the highest impactful risk factor, if I say, that is aging. So if you see the prevalence during 60 to 80 is, let's say, 0.5 to 0.9%, it just jump to more than 2 to 5% when it is 80 plus. Mm-hmm. So the good news or bad news, whatever you say, there is a massive demographic shift. 80 plus population is the fastest growing population. So as per UN data, we are expecting the elderly population growth, especially 80 plus population growth, is going to be 300 times, 300% between 2010 to 2030. So obviously, more the people are aging, they will have more chance of neurodegenerative disorder like dementia. So this is one factor. But there are multiple risk factors. It starts from your young age. There are few factors we call as early life risk factor, like low education. Right. So if you see our elderly people in our country, 70% are from informal sector and their literacy is not that great. So that is definitely one. Then middle life stress, depression, smoking, alcoholism, these are definite lifestyle related risk factors. In late life, you see social isolation, physical inactivity, hearing impairment, physical inactivity I mentioned. These are all risk factors. Plus, there are add-on risk factors, vascular, which you already know, hypertension, diabetes, coronary artery disease. So this is the ultimate manifestation of dementia is a cumulative deficit. So throughout your life, whatever insult you have given, and moreover, the recent onset is pollution. So pollution is also a significant risk factor for dementia. So if you cumulate all these things, obviously, older Indians are at highest risk, and with aging, with time, dementia is going to be the future pandemic. COVID has also worsened the situation. Elderly people who suffer from COVID, who has not suffered from COVID, we forcefully isolated them. We forcefully told them not to do physical activity. Many of them are depressed because of the loss of their family member, financial loss, financial insecurity, So there are multifactorial
So I think that's the more worrying part, Dr. Panda, that, earlier we could say that dementia is an inevitable consequence of aging. Not anymore. The adversarial impact that the COVID pandemic has had on multiple sectors, how do you look at that aspect in the last 2 years, especially when, we've been through this unprecedented kind of health crisis? How do you see it triggering its, impact on dementia particularly?
So Dr. Chatterjee has made an important point. He said that social isolation, disconnect from your peers, physical inactivity, these kind of accelerate the dementia process. These two things have happened at a regular rate during this pandemic. Further, vascular risk factors are another cause for an increase in dementia. COVID directly or indirectly has caused some vascular issues also in the brain that might have also accelerated. So probably these two factors are there which can point towards the fact that this pandemic per se might be a trigger for that. But overall, as sir had pointed out during his previous talk, he was saying about multiple risk factors and which start early in the life. So these factors need to be taken care of so that our aging population does not have to deal with the burden of dementia that we were talking about in the Lancet Commission.
One worrying aspect, Dr. Chatterjee, and something that got me worried is the fact that women, in women, the prevalence of dementia is much more higher than that of men. In India also, that aspect is going to continue till about 2050, according to the data that I'm citing from Lancet report. And also the WHO data says that women will be impacted by Alzheimer's, by other forms of dementia in the times to come. Why does it hit women more than men, of course? And how can we, ensure that this can be at least prevented? So when we talk about early stage detection, is there a possibility to perhaps check it at an early stage?
Of course. Your first question regarding women is, we are discussing, we'll again and again discuss the same, because ultimately that has to be like registered with people's mind, So if you see about social isolation, if you see about physical inactivity, if you see about prevalence of depression, these are all more common in women, right? But I will not discriminate here as a gender specific. Of course, diabetic, especially the specific issue what you mentioned is studies as maximally seen in women with diabetics, they have more chances of. But again, if you control the risk factor, which is very much nowadays, controlling hypertension, diabetes is very much possible. There is no entity called uncontrolled diabetes, uncontrolled hypertension nowadays to us, if you are going to the right doctor in right time. Then smoking, you have to stop. This no one can stop smoking, right? So and the point what we initially started, low education, low literacy. So point is, if we make it a life course perspective, now we call as we have to take care of our life course. So at the age of 80, if you are a smoker throughout life, you come to me, most of my patients are 80 plus, they come to me, doctor, take care of my lung, I have smoked throughout the life. That is not possible at all, right? So our young generation, especially why I am telling about young generation, because after 20 years, they are going to the elderly. The middle generation, 40 to 60 years, you have to start working on this, because dementia is something no one would like to suffer from dementia. This is not only your suffering, it is a suffering for your family, because caregiver burden is a major issue, and our social security system is not that strong that we will dump you in some care home. Ultimately, we have to take care of you. So coming back to the point, lifestyle, it starts with your diet. It takes care of your exercise, diet, exercise, new skill learning. Education, fine. I have seen so many elderly people, they are not, my nani, she is not educated in school life, but she reads books now at the age of 85. So lifelong learning has also shown improvement, prevention of dementia. So that we can do. Diet, again, you stop fast food, which is nowadays so rampant. Fast food is directly related with dementia, studies have shown. Cigarette smoking is directly related to dementia. Chronic excessive alcoholism is directly related. So these are the factors you have to exclude. See, recently I have concluded a study where we have compared with Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet, is a known preventive strategy for dementia. So we cannot have Mediterranean diet, but we can have Mediterranean equivalent diet. Yeah. You need not to eat, drink olive oil, but even mustard oil is also good. But avoid fast food. That is in your hand. Take plenty of vegetables, which has antioxidant property, which shows a much better result. Similarly, veg, non-veg, whatever, improve your protein diet. So we worked on calorie basically. High protein diet is preventive. Similarly, exercise. Forget about your senior, your junior. You have to have you have to do exercise, which we don't practice. We preach, but we don't practice exercise. Similarly, learning has been constructed only within WhatsApp and Google, but learning is much beyond that. You learn new skill. Learning has to be new, which will stimulate your brain. And previously we used to think brain cannot, once it cannot regenerate anymore. But brain is also plastic. So neuroplasticity theory says that you can definitely, I have patient who forgot everything. very interesting story, which I depicted in my book. And I started teaching them through occupational therapist, A, B, C, D, starting from scratch. So you behave with them just like a child, teach them like ABCD. They have also capacity to learn new skill. Right.
Even at that age.
Even at that advanced dementia. I'm talking about advanced. We'll talk sometime about all the stages of dementia. So what happened? Then she was a lady, renowned lady. Then she started writing her name spelling, and then started recognizing her husband, her daughter name gradually. So it is possible. Don't give up, and starting from prevention till the palliation, if I say like that, is possible. Dementia is, and don't equate aging with dementia. Of course, aging is a risk factor, but I have patients who are 90 plus with no dementia. I'm also conducting a study called super ager. So their super agers are those whose brain is as good as 80 plus people, whose brain is as good as who are 50 plus. So 30 years they have, reduced their age. So what are the features we saw? We saw they have a very soothing personality. They are agreeable. They are not very anxious. They are open to learn new things. They exercise. They eat healthy. Of course, their IQ was good. Their educational status, life satisfaction, your happiness, everything matters.
Right. I think it's all interconnected.
Interconnected.
Just to add on to what Sir was saying, is brilliantly capitulated all those things. But just to add on a few things, like exercise, kitna karna hai? How much do you have to do? Research shows 30 minutes, 3 times a week, good enough. Cognitive reserve as in what was
because
your
I
educational
think what's
status?
also concerning is rigorous physical
30
activity is
minutes.
also claiming lives. There are
Yes.
youngsters who are dying of
so
heart
that's what I'm
attacks.
saying. 30 minutes, 3 times a week, good enough. Then comes cognitive reserve. How much are you educated? That is a baseline, but you can read on books. As we were discussing before, you can learn new skills. You can try some simple things like brushing from your left hand, writing from your left hand, trying simple exercises or puzzles, learning new languages, learning new skills. Women can learn gardening, men can learn cooking. So these kind of things help you in expanding the cognitive reserve of your brain.
Right.
The third factor that Sir was pointing towards in social isolation, and purpose of life. So if you give yourself a purpose of life after 60, in India, whenever patients start to have some memory issues or behavioral issues after 60, we put it under the carpet and say, Satya gaye hain. So that's not the point. The point is after 60, suddenly their social life goes into a topsy-turvy situation. People retire, they don't know what to do. So they should find a new purpose in life. They should engage themselves socially. As Sir said, that non-profit organizations they run, wherein people come
Certainly.
and teach.
So how can we enhance social sensitivity is of course one aspect. I'll come back to that point in just a bit. But before that, because from a layman's perspective, Dr. Panda, what I want to understand is, we've spoken at large about prevention and how the elderly have, shown positive signs. These numbers, while they are concerning, they're also showing positive indications of how there is growing awareness. So in terms of diagnosis, there are more and more people who are growing aware of this particular disease. But, as a common person, how do I detect the early signs and symptoms of dementia? I mean, so if somebody has this habit of forgetting things, should he or she be worried that it could be a case of dementia and I need to go to a particular doctor?
Dementia can be broadly classified into reversible dementias and irreversible dementias. So general terminology, when we talk about old age dementias which keep on progressing, we're talking about irreversible kind of dementias, neurodegenerative conditions. There are reversible dementias also, like vascular risk factors causing a lot of strokes in the brain. So if you prevent those things, control your diabetes, hypertension, those things get controlled. So now what are the symptoms, as you were saying? How do we identify? So they can be classified into two broad groups, behavioral and memory-based symptoms. So memory-based symptoms, as you were pointing out, forgetting things, like keeping things and forgetting where they have kept, eating food and asking again and again, taking a bath and again going for the same.
So post-COVID, a lot of young people have begun complaining that, they would do things and forget, and this was a recurring activity.
See, there is a difference between the two. One has to keep an eye on the two. One can be a COVID-related cognitive issue or a fogging that happens for a time frame.
An impact of a long COVID.
Yes, and the other can be the situations that we are talking about, a long, progressive, protracted course of decline, which causes a difficulty in your daily activities. Daily activities, and as in your basic activities, say brushing, or instrumental activities like taking care of your finances, planning your activities, say somebody has to go out, get a list of stuff and come back. If that starts to get affected, those are the things wherein you start to get worried about. And the other aspect that I was talking about was the behavioral aspect. One is the memory aspect, other is the behavioral aspect. Those factors are also important symptoms of dementia. There is an entire subgroup of dementia called frontotemporal dementias, which are different from Alzheimer's. In this, the patients don't have any memory issues at all. They start with a lot of behavioral aspects like apathy, not taking interest in daily-to-daily activities. They feel depressed. They have aggressive outlook towards life. They start to become socially disinhibited. So these things are thought to be psychiatric illnesses, but they actually may be heralding symptoms of a different kind of a dementia. So once you have these kind of symptoms that are going on in the family, it is better not to stigmatize them. See, memory issues, we tend to still go to doctors, but these behavioral issues, we tend to keep it to ourselves.
You know, in a country like ours, Dr. Chatterjee, where even visiting the psychiatrist could, lead to a lot of stigmatization, the fact that you address it, point on that you have dementia, you are actually seeking help, and at the same time inculcate the kind of sensitivity that we are talking about. How do you look forward to this? Because at the rate at which it is going to grow, you said it's going to be the future pandemic, we need to prepare well, not just in terms of medications and treatments that could be available by then, but also in terms of the kind of social atmosphere that we create for patients.
Absolutely. What Dr. Panda was also mentioning, awareness is most important. I'll add 2-3 more points. So seniors may have some personality changes. That can be early sign. Seniors have some language issue, word finding difficulty, some places. Seniors who are managing multiple tasks together, now he is missing few things, he or she is missing few things. Of course, memory problem, behavioral issue. There is an entity called mild behavioral impairment, apathy, anxiety, which cannot be explained by other psychiatric disorder. So point is, first awareness should be the individual himself or herself, right? Then the family member. So first thing I'll suggest is the family member should be aware, the person should be aware. Then comes to health professional. We need lot of skilled manpower. The best person to of course with the help of a doctor, best person to diagnose or analyze is a neuropsychologist, which is mostly missing most of the places, and it is practically not possible also in primary health center. But in WHO, where we are working on that, even primary care physician, even a sub-center person, Anganwadi worker, they can also be sensitized. Look, 2-3 very quick tests, as we call as mini-cog. Mini-cog is a very quick test. Anybody can do 3-item recall, clock drawing test. You come to a conclusion and send the patient to next person. So point is, number one, you don't think that dementia is not treatable. So first thing we have to say, just like hypertension, just like diabetes, just like coronary artery disease, dementia is treatable. First statement is that we have to understand. Second is, if you see the spectrum, it starts with subjective feeling that, look, I am forgetting. When mostly 90% of elderly people, they just ignore it, their family, no, it is probably aging changes. It is not aging changes. Even subjective cognition, in our study in AIMS, what we saw, the best recognizable state and best time to prevent, best time to intervene is subjective cognitive decline. Yes. Then comes your minimal cognitive impairment. In minimal cognitive impairment, you are forgetful. In assessment also, you have some problem. But you are still managing your activity of daily living, which Dr. Saab mentioned, bathing, toileting, washing, transferring, like that. Then in advance, when you forget, as well as you have problem with your activity of daily living, that is an advanced stage of dementia. So it is treatable. And even if you are in a village, go and meet your village dai and say, Anganwadi worker or a primary health center doctors, look, I am forgetting and this is not a normal phenomenon, I know. If this much message we can give, then the other, definitely we have to skill many people. We need lot of neuropsychology. We need lot of specialists also who are interested in working. Problem with us, even I'll take the blame on us also, a doctor, we are happy to write a medicine and send them home. It's not that only writing a medicine. It's a multidisciplinary teamwork. We need dietitian, we need a physiotherapist, we need a occupational therapist. Even social worker plays a major role. Studies have shown who connect. So seniors, they should, even before retirement, I say before retirement, you are extremely busy with your family. Now you do something for others' family. That helps. spirituality prevents dementia, mathematical calculation prevent dementia, music therapy prevent dementia, helping others prevent dementia. These are something which you can do.
I think,
Tinaji, if I can just add,
Sure.
you know, there are places like in Delhi, from where I come, IBAS, we have a social work department, we have a clinical psychology department, we have a neurology department. So as sir was saying, a combined approach. So you were talking about awareness. So when you make those attendants or patients or caregivers meet each other, talk about their family, talk about their illnesses, this sheds a lot of stigma. We have a support group called Dhairya There, which is run by our department HOD. So therein, what happens is we have programs wherein all these people come and meet and talk about each other, talk about each other's illnesses. How to deal with is an important issue. Caregivers are, you know, burdened with patients of
That's
dementia.
exactly my point, that, you know, in a country with a huge population like ours, by next year we'll be the most populated country in the world, and with the dementia cases rising exponentially, the challenge is going to be the kind of extensive involvement and engagement it requires on part of the caregivers. Skilled manpower is of course a problem in this area. So how can we inculcate you know, and prepare well in advance to meet with this particular challenge is number one. So we've spoken about how we can enhance social awareness, but physical infrastructure is equally important. So the common person should know that, you know, I have to go to this place and this is where I'm going to get the best kind of treatment. So towards that, what are the kind of efforts that we're making? Do we have enough such centers even now?
I think yes. I mean, in you know, sir is in AIMS. There are other centers also wherein neurology, psychiatry, clinical psychologists, social work, they are doing their own bit. But as you're saying, this is a pandemic, the numbers are going to increase. The physical infrastructure has to increase, but as awareness starts to come, and in this era of, you know, information technology, you don't need a lot of physical infrastructure per se. Say for example, cognitive stimulation, what you need? You need a puzzle to, you know, engage yourself. So the puzzles can be available on your smartphone, it can be available on your laptops. It can be a simple thing like Sudoku, it can be as simple as drawing a new thing, learning music. So awareness and knowledge about the things that you are going through and the kind of practices that you can do at your home to stimulate, train and rehabilitate yourself does not require a hospital setup always. For an advanced stage, maybe yes, but initial phases like we're talking about subjective cognitive impairment or minimal cognitive impairment, 16 to 20% people do reverse from that also. So there is
Right,
nothing
so
to fear about dementia per se.
The bottom line is information and awareness. These are two aspects which could take care of the early stage detection. One last aspect, Dr. Chatterjee, that I want you to touch upon is research and innovation. So the WHO talks about a 7-point strategy when it identifies dementia as a public health priority. So we've discussed more or less 6 aspects, the last being research and innovation. A lot of hopes are pinned on India. We are the youngest country in the world. Yeah. So when it comes, when we know the threat is there, it's going to be the future pandemic. In terms of research and innovation, what is it that we can do to at least lessen the kind of consequences that people may have to face in their later years?
Absolutely. See, point is, first thing I'll just add with Dr. Panda one more point. You know, ultimately the joint family structure which will help, which will work ultimately. So because, you know, when both the couple are working, one of the family member is suffering, it's very difficult to manage. And like in my family, I can give my example. My parents are luckily with me, or rather I am with them. My children are young, they are getting a purpose in their life. They are interconnected. And even in case of need, my children will take care of my parents. So that is a major things. I know there are a lot of complex discussion on the joint family, but again, joint family has to come back. A country like India, if we can, we have to handle this major pandemic. Number 2, regarding research, there is a major study by Government of India with NIH is called Longitudinal Aging Survey of India. Now we are trying to understand how people ages. So 45 plus people we are recruiting, and 75 plus also we are recruiting. So we'll follow them for 25 years. First wave is already done. We have some publication related to that. Plus multiple institute like IVAS, like AIMS, like PGI, like Niemans, they are doing their research as per their capacity. As I mentioned, we have concluded excellent RCT, which has been published recently in PLOS ONE, where we have seen in this diet, exercise and computer gaming. We have used a German software called Rehacom, which has domain-wise, we can reinforce attention, concentration, difficulty. Then, as I mentioned, I am working on superager, because, you know, predicting the superager and practicing for superaging is going to be healthy aging, because healthy aging and dementia cannot go hand in hand. It's like just the opposite. So if we are talking about healthy India through this program, to be healthy you have to be mentally healthy first. Physical health is definitely important, but mental health is most important. Government has also given a lot of
Absolutely.
stress.
So this is a problem, Dr. Panda, that not just India but globally is quite prevalent. So in other sectors, what we do is we adapt the best practices from the world. So to ensure that we meet this particular challenge and we are well prepared in time, what are some of the best practices that we can adopt from some of the developed countries?
Herein cognition and cognitive practices differ. There is a cultural cognition. The tests that are valid, say in the West, are not valid on our patients sometimes.
Okay.
So we need to develop our own things. Cognitive reserve has a cultural basis. For example, somebody from UP may be knowing a particular kind of an animal on testing, but somebody from, say, down south or from northeast or Rajasthan might not. That does not make him demented. So in this condition, it is not better to follow what they are doing, but rather, as I was saying, try to find how we age. Longitudinally see what are the diseases that are affecting us.
True.
Whether we are suffering from Alzheimer's more or vascular dementias more. In the West, Alzheimer takes up the piece of the cake. Larger number of population are Alzheimer disease. But are Alzheimer patients more in our country, or whether it is a mix of vascular and Alzheimer's or FTD or other things, we'll have to find out for ourselves. They have an aging population, they have found it out. We are a young population, we are moving towards that direction.
That's a problem that we are going to face in the next decade.
So we need to prepare.
They have control very much, because so that only we are taking the major share, 60% of dementia, because they have controlled their lifestyle. The largest study which is going on is finger trial, worldwide finger trial. So in that they have also seen actually there is no best practices that way to stamp.
We need to have local solutions.
Yes, and it is non-pharmacological. It is lifestyle modification. So work throughout your life to prevent yourself from dementia, increase your cognitive reserve, socialize yourself, and take care of others so that they also will take care of yourself.
So I think the crux of the discussion is go back to what our ancestors used to do in terms of adapting the organic way of living. So perhaps that could lessen the impact of the threat of dementia that we are talking about. It's going to, in terms of numbers, it's quite concerning, but with the kind of steps and the solutions that our experts here in the studio have provided, perhaps we will be able to control it and prevent this form of the disease. So that having been said, I have to wind up the program. Thank you very much to both our guests for joining me on this discussion and sharing your valuable inputs with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time. I'll see you same time next week. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Keep watching Sansad TV.